Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the CAMedia Podcast, the show that allows you to come in your own unique way. I'm your host, Clay Anderson, and today I have Terry Tucker on, and he will dive into his four truths about his terminal cancer. Uh, the show is brought to you by Visionary Minds, Public Relations, and Media. If you have any media consultations or inquiries, feel free to contact visionarymindsny@gmail.com, and Tammy Reese will gladly get in contact with you. Um, Today, Terry is on the podcast. He is a speaker, an author, a podcast guest, as he is on it right now, uh, and on the topic of mindset and self-development. Among his diverse professional roles, Terry has also been in marketing experience, executive, hospital administrator. Is that correct?
Correct.
A SWAT hostage negotiator, and for the last 13 years, a cancer warrior. It's a privilege and an honor to have you on, Mr. Tucker. Would you dive in a little bit more about yourself?
Sure. Well, first of all, Clyde, thanks for having me on. I'm really looking forward to talking with you today. Yeah, a little bit about me. I grew up on the south side of Chicago. I'm the oldest of three boys. You can't tell this from looking at me or from my voice, but I'm 6'8" tall and actually went to college at the Citadel in Charleston, South Carolina on a basketball scholarship, despite having three knee surgeries in high school. When I graduated from college, I moved home to find a job. I'm really going to date myself now, but this was long before the internet was available to help people find employment.
Correct.
Fortunately, I did find that first job in the corporate headquarters of Wendy's International, the hamburger chain, in their marketing department. That was the good news. The bad news was I lived with my parents for the next 3.5 years as I helped my mother care for my father and my grandmother, who were both dying of different forms of cancer. After Wendy's, I actually went to work for the hospital that cared for my father and my grandmother. I thought they did such a great job. I wanted to be part of that organization. And then at 37, made the major pivot in my life and became a police officer. And as you mentioned, part of what I did was I was a SWAT hostage negotiator. After that, I started a school security consulting business. I coached girls' high school basketball when we lived in Texas. But for the last 13 years now, I've been battling a rare form of cancer, a rare form of melanoma. And then finally, my wife and I have been married for 32 years. We have one child, a daughter, who's a graduate of the United States Air Force Academy and is an officer in the new branch of the military, the Space Force.
Amazing, amazing work, amazing transition of positions in life. Let's go back. Let's talk about a little bit of your transition of different positions. Um, you started off at Wendy's as a marketing manager. How was that as your first gig of work?
Yeah, I mean, I was so green and so wet behind the ears. I didn't know what I was doing. I mean, just because you graduate from college and you have a degree, you think you know everything there is to know about the world. And I knew nothing. And I remember like the first 6 months, I was a field marketing trainee to start with. And I think all I did was make copies, go pick up lunch for certain meetings. And a lot of the marketing managers had company cars and go and gas up their cars. And I'm like, I got a college degree to do this, but
Yeah.
you've got to pay your dues, like anything else, like any other job. You start at the bottom and you learn and you observe and you watch and you figure things out, and so you have the skills then to progress. And so it was a lot of fun. It was kind of the heyday of fast food. There was a commercial. There was a little woman that ran around by the name of Clara Peller saying, "Where's the beef?" And that became a political. Ronald Reagan used it when he was running for president and things like that. So it was just a great time to be in that industry. And it also afforded me the opportunity, like I said, to stay home with my mom and help care for my father and my grandmother who were battling cancer as well.
So with the help of your mother and you said your grandmother,
My father and my
your
grandmother were both
father, your
battling.
grandmother battling cancer, was that one of the reasons why you pivoted to the hospital role that you were doing before you became a police officer?
It actually is. I mean, I kind of felt I was at the hospital so often with the two of them in and out. over the 3.5 years that it took them both to die, that I wanted to be part of that organization. They got exceptional care during their time when they were in the hospital. I met great doctors, great nurses, great therapists, and things like that. And I thought, they figured it out. They get it. And I don't think I figured it out yet. So I'd like to be part of this organization so I could figure it out. And yeah, it was a great experience for me. I actually met my wife there through a leadership program that the hospital sent me to, in that. So it was a fabulous time, something I really enjoyed. And I didn't directly take care of patients, but I was kind of on the fringe. I supported the people who took care of patients, and that. So it was a great experience for me.
I know a couple podcasts ago that I had Angie Muffin on, and she talked about navigating grief. How were you able to navigate the transition of like your grandmother and your father?
Yeah, it was hard. They died within 18 months of each other. And as hard as it was for me, I still to this day think how hard it must have been for my mother, because in one room, her mother was dying, and in the room right next to it, her husband was dying. And we knew they were dying. We knew there was nothing that was able to be done. My dad died of end stage breast cancer, which back in the 1980s was very rare for a man to have that. They really didn't know what to do to try to help him or treat him. So it was terrible. I mean, it was constant. What's going on? What do you do? I remember my first paycheck from Wendy's. I ended up buying I went to Radio Shack. I don't even know if Radio Shack still exists anymore, but I went
Nah.
to Radio Shack and I bought a cordless telephone, and I put the base next to my father's bed, and I took the handheld part and I put it next to my bed at night. And so if my dad needed anything, he could just hit a button, and my area or my little receiver would buzz or beep, and I would go and help him out. And so it was literally, I would get up in the morning when I would go to work. I would empty his urinal. That was the first thing I did. I would take a shower, get dressed, go to work. And then at noon, I would leave work, come home, help my mother get him ready for work, put him in the car, take him to his job, get him situated in his office, go back to work. And then at 5 o'clock, I'd go get him, bring him home. We'd get him upstairs, get him into bed, and things like that. So it was really, it was trying to work. And you just graduated from college. You think you're going to set the world on fire, and all of a sudden, kind of God hits you between the eyes and says, no, you're going to stay at home and you're going to take care of your mom and dad and your grandmother. And so I would do it again. If it took me 30 years, if it took 30 years for them to die, I would do it again, because my parents gave my brothers and I everything. They taught us the value of family, of loving each other, of caring for each other, of supporting each other. So it was something my parents did for me, and it was something I was going to do when they needed me as well.
Amazing. Um, so I know it seemed like from what I'm hearing, a ton of like your family has a history of line of like dealing with cancer, right? How were you able to like navigate or like even educate yourself on their diagnosis?
Yeah, I mean, my dad was of the generation that men didn't go to doctors. I mean,
Correct.
I was thinking back, I don't ever remember my father going to a doctor when I was growing up. Even if he had the flu or something like that, he would never go to the doctor. And my dad knew he was sick for months, but refused to go to the doctor. And as I mentioned, I've got two other brothers. I'm 6'8". I got a brother who's 6'7", who was a pitcher for the University of Notre Dame's baseball team. Another brother who's 6'6", who was drafted by the Cleveland Cavaliers in the National Basketball Association. So, and then my dad was 6'5". So when dad got so sick, we made the appointment for him to go see the doctor. And he was like, I'm not going. And it was like, look, dad, the three of us are young, we're strong. You're sick, you're weak. You're going to lose this battle. So just
Exactly.
shut up and get in the car, because I mean, it was like, we'll carry you if we need to do that. But it was, I think back on that and like, my dad never met my wife. He never met his grandchild, and on my side, or any of his grandchildren. And it was just one of those things where I had questions. I still had a lot of questions about life that I wish he would have been around that I could have asked him. How did you handle this? Or what do you think I should do here? But I guess, like anything else, I think God puts you here for a purpose, for a reason. And when that reason is concluded, then he takes you home. And so maybe it was up to me to figure out the answers to those questions and not have somebody tell me the answers and stuff like that. So it was very hard to watch my grandmother die first and then 18 months later to be back at the cemetery, putting my dad in the ground as well. So it was a very hard thing. I miss them both to this day. They were great people, but they're with me and that. So I'm happy that I had the opportunity to be with them because there were those nights where Dad was just exhausted, laying in bed, where we had some of the best talks, in the dark about life and things like that. So I'm very grateful that I got that opportunity.
Okay. So transitioning, I don't know how many years later, how did you found out that you had cancer? What's the name of the cancer again? I do apologize. I know it started with an M.
No, that's fine. I have a rare form of melanoma called acral lentiginous melanoma.
Can you describe that a little bit more to the listeners, if
Sure.
possible?
So I'll kind of tell you how it came about for me. As I mentioned, one of the jobs I had was I was a girls' high school basketball coach, and I had a callus break open on the bottom of my left foot, right below my third toe. And Clyde, initially, I didn't think much of it. As a coach, you're on your feet a lot, so I really didn't think much of it. But after a couple weeks of it not healing, I made an appointment and went to see a podiatrist, a foot doctor friend of mine. And he took an x-ray and he said, Terry, I think you have a cyst in there and I can cut it out. And he did. And he showed it to me. It was just a little gelatin sac with some white fat in it, no dark spots, no blood, nothing that gave either one of us concern. But fortunately, or unfortunately, he sent it off to pathology to have it looked at. And 2 weeks later, I received the call from him. And as I mentioned, he was a friend of mine. And the more difficulty he was having explaining to me what was going on, the more frightened I was becoming. Until finally he just laid it out for me. He said, Terry, I've been a doctor for 25 years and I have never seen the form of cancer that you have. You have this incredibly rare form of melanoma. And most people think of melanoma as too much exposure to the sun. It
Mhm.
affects the melanin, the pigment in our skin. Mine has nothing to do with sun exposure. It's just a rare form that appears on the bottom of the feet or the palms of the hands. And because my cancer was so uncommon, he recommended I go to MD Anderson Cancer Center in Houston and be treated. And that's how it all started.
So, so, and that's the start of the 13-year journey.
Correct.
So let's dive into your four truth. And so one of your four truth is to control your mind or it will control you. Like, what have been some of your best effective strategies to control your mind during these difficult times?
Sure. So I learned early. I mentioned I had three knee surgeries when I was in high school. And I remember when I went back playing basketball after those knee surgeries, that my brain was putting all kinds of negative thoughts into my mind. Things like, hey, you're probably a step slower because of those surgeries, and college coaches aren't going to be interested in recruiting you. And I remember thinking, wait a minute, I am still playing at an elite level, and coaches are still reaching out about the possibility of playing for their college or university. I learned early that I needed to sort of change the narrative, change the dialogue that was going on in my mind. And the Cleveland Clinic, I think they do a lot of great research on the brain and memory and things like that. They recommend or they suggest that on any given day, we all have about 60 or 70,000 thoughts that pass through our mind. 95% of those thoughts are thoughts from a previous day or a previous time. So on any given day, we might have about 3,500 new thoughts that pass through our mind. And our brains operate at the speed of about 1,000 words a minute. Given all those thoughts, your mind can still hold only one thought at a time. So why would you want to make that a negative thought? The problem with most of us, and I have done this many times in my life, and I'm not proud of it, is that we think with our fears and our insecurities instead of using our minds. When I was growing up in Chicago, Indiana University was probably one of the best basketball programs in the country. And their coach was a guy by the name of Bobby Knight, who just died, I believe, last year. And Knight had a great quote. He said, "Mental toughness is to physical as four is to one." So here's this great coach teaching premier athletes to use their bodies to be great athletes on the court. But
Right.
what he was really saying with that quote is that your mind or your mindset is four times more important than anything your physical body was going to do. As I mentioned, I'll end with this story. When I was in college, I went to the Citadel, which is a military college in
Mhm.
Charleston, South Carolina. And in my sophomore year, we had a president by the name of James Stockdale. Now, Stockdale had been a naval aviator, a fighter pilot, flew off aircraft carriers during the Vietnam War. And in 1965, he was shot down and spent 8 years as a prisoner of war
Wow.
in the infamous prisoner of war camp known as the Hanoi Hilton. And he was the primary organizer of prisoner resistance. And so when he was released, he basically was given the Medal of Honor for everything he did as a prisoner. Now, I didn't spend much time around Admiral Stockdale. He was obviously the president of the school. I was just a cadet. But I do remember being at a meeting with him, and somebody asked him, who were the people that survived that torture, those beatings, that brutality? He said, "Well, let me tell you who didn't survive." He said it wasn't the big, strong, tough guys who thought that they could handle any kind of abuse or torture. And the next thing he said really kind of surprised me. He said the other group that didn't survive were the optimists. He
Mm.
said these were the people that thought they would be let go by Thanksgiving or Christmas or Easter. And he said when those holidays would come and go, he said those people died of a broken heart. He said the people who survived were the people who figured out what they could control, which, according to Stockdale, was basically the breathing in their lungs and the thoughts in their minds and controlled it. Everything else was outside their purview. And I'll finish this story with
No, no, you're
something
fine. You're fine.
something that he said that I think is still amazing. And this is called the Stockdale paradox. He said, "You must never confuse faith that you will prevail in the end, which you can never afford to lose, with the discipline to confront the most brutal facts of your current reality, whatever those facts may be." So you can never give up hope, but you also got to understand where you are, what your situation is, and how bad or how good things are.
Amen. I agree. Like you have to control your mind. Like you got to control what you are able to control in life. If it's in your control, you can control. But anything outside of it, society, the world, uh, that's going to control itself. So the thing that you are in control with, you can control.
Yeah, and but how do you know that? And one of the things that I do, and I'll recommend this to your audience. It's a real simple exercise. If something's bothering you, just take a piece of paper and write down every single thing that's bothering you about whatever that issue is. And once you have everything down on a piece of paper, as you said, go through and cross out everything that you have no control over. Whatever is left on that piece of paper is something that you can deal with. The rest of the stuff, you just got to let it go.
That's right. The second of your four truths were embracing the pain and the difficulty to build resilience. How do you feel? How do you define resilience in your own life?
Yeah. I think resilience is just keeping going, just keep moving forward. And I think the problem we get into is that our brains are hardwired to avoid pain and discomfort and to seek pleasure. So to the brain, the status quo, the way things are right now, hey, it's comfortable, it's familiar, just leave it alone. Clyde, we know this. The problem is we all know the only way you're going to grow, the only way you're going to improve, the only way you're going to get better is if you step outside those comfort zones and you do things that make you uncomfortable. My players, when I was coaching basketball,
Hmm.
they would pretty much tell you. I used to always tell them, you need to become comfortable being uncomfortable. But how do you do that? Well, let me offer this suggestion because I try to do this every day of my life. Every day, try to do at least one thing that scares you, that makes you nervous, that makes you uncomfortable, that's potentially embarrassing. It doesn't have to be a big thing. But if you do those small things every day, when the big disasters in life hit us, they hit all of us. We lose somebody who's close to us, we unexpectedly get let go from our job. Like me, you find out you have a chronic or a terminal illness, you will be so much more resilient to handle those things when they present themselves.
Amen. How would you say embracing the pain, what does that look like in practice?
That means do things that you don't like. For example, when I take a shower, I think the jury is still out scientifically on cold water therapy in terms of what exactly it does for your body. But I will take a shower at night and then I will turn the water as cold as it can possibly be. And I will sit underneath that water for 2 to 3 minutes. I hate it. It's terribly uncomfortable, but it also prepares me, I guess, for the times when I have to go for my therapies at the hospital, when I'm throwing up, when I'm shaking, when I have a fever and all that stuff. So it's doing those things that are uncomfortable when I don't have to, so that when I have to do uncomfortable things, I'm much more prepared for those things.
Amen. Would you do you think our culture is tries to avoid discomfort too much? And how do you think people can get better with the hardships as a catalyst of growth?
I do. I do think that we don't expect to have any adversity in our life. Especially younger people. I got to have a safe space, especially when they're in school. And I would say, why? Isn't school, whether it's high school or college, and I'm not talking about physically, safe space. Isn't high school or college a time to test your limits, to test what you believe in, to test your faith, to test your values and things like that? That's when those things should be tested. But it seems like younger people are like, no, no, it's always I've got to be safe. I can never have my values or anything that I hold dear tested. No, that's when you need to have them tested so that in your life what's foundational, that's not going to move. It's your rock and things like that. And I don't think people do that. Now, understanding that, if you're a person that has just a little bit of grit, that is willing to go for something, you'll be so much further down the road than all those people that never even start to do things. I love the quote from Jerry Rice, who was a wide receiver for the San Francisco 49ers. He's in the Hall of Fame. He had a great quote. And he said, "Today I will do what others won't so that tomorrow I can do what others can't." So if you're willing to do the thing, I mean, you look at a guy like Kobe Bryant, the guy was amazing in his work ethic on how all these guys are sleeping in and he's getting up early, getting in an extra hour or two of practice. Well, you take an hour or two of practice every day over 365 days, how much better are you going to be? And I don't know who came up with this, but there's sort of that old, it's not really old, I guess it's relatively new, that if you want to be great at something, spend 18 minutes a day working on that. Think about that. 18 minutes. That's all. I mean, how much time do we waste on social media, scrolling through Facebook or something like that? If you
Right.
took those 18 minutes and whatever it is, you want to write a book, you want to learn to play piano, you want whatever it is, you want to learn to cook, whatever you want to do, spend 18 minutes a day. At the end of a year, you will be incredibly accomplished at whatever it is you're trying to do.
I firmly agree with that. I believe that, even to be really an expert at something, you need at least 10,000 hours of doing that line of work, i.e. podcasting, i.e. playing a musical instrument, or even studying baseball or studying film. Like I know in life, well, in sports, to be a Hall of Famer, you have to get 3,000 hits. 3,000 hits is equivalent out of 10,000 at bats is 3,000, but you could bat 3 for 10 and get into the Hall of Fame. Like But if the only way you to do it is by putting in that work, so you could be a 62nd round pick in 1988, like Mike Piazza, and make
Yeah.
it to the Hall of Fame.
Well, I love the quote. Usain Bolt was, he may still be, I don't know if he is, the fastest man in the world. He broke it was like 9.58 100-yard
Something like
dash.
that. Yeah.
Yeah. And he has a great quote. He said, I spent 4 years learning how to run 9 seconds. And so many people give up on their hopes, their dreams, their aspirations after just a few months. So, I mean, think about that. I spent 4 years learning how to run 9 seconds, but people give up and they do, they quit.
Mhm.
That's why I said, you can't do anything about anybody else, but you can do something about yourself. You can figure out people who need to be around you that are going to help you be better. You can decide to get up early. I read a statistic that a third of all Americans hit the snooze button on their phone at least twice every morning. So that's what, 30 minutes if every 15 minutes. So that's twice. So that's 30 minutes that you're really sleeping in and you're really not getting good sleep if you do that. What if you took that 30 minutes and meditated or went for a run or learned to be a podcaster or read a book or whatever it is? That's 30 minutes. Going back to 18 minutes to be great at something every day. That's almost half right there. Just don't
Exactly.
hit the snooze button. It's not hard to do, but people aren't willing to do it because it's uncomfortable. Uncomfortability is where people grow. You do not grow when things are great and happy and everything's wonderful.
Absolutely. I can attest to that. There was a time in my life where like I like this current move. Like I was living upstate in New York, and I took a job downstate to for a different position. I knew of the position, but I knew of it through other people, see other people at work doing it. Yes, it was uncomfortable moving back to New York City. I was comfortable being upstate New York, and me making taking that risk and stepping out on faith allowed me to flourish with the position that I currently have. That took me understanding the position. That took me having great managers to teach me as well. It also took me learning what I needed to do to be a great worker in my field. So, yes, it may have been uncomfortable moving back to a fast life in New York City, but the comfortability of me taking the risk, going back home with the family, uh, allowed me to thrive in my current position.
Yeah. There's
Yeah,
another great quote that's attributed to Nelson Mandela. It's kind of questionable whether he said it, but it's still a great quote. And the quote is, I never lose. I either learn or I win. So even if you make mistakes, we're all going to make mistakes in life.
of
It's the
course.
only way we grow. I mean, you're not going to grow if you don't make mistakes. Don't look at those mistakes as failure. Look at those mistakes as what did I learn from making that failure and then apply it to something else. It kind of goes back to what I said earlier about thinking with our fears and our insecurities. I know I've done that. I know I've wanted to start a business or get involved in a project, and you're like, oh, wait a minute. Maybe I'm not smart enough, or maybe I don't have enough information, or what will people say about me if I fail? That's thinking with our fears and insecurities. That's not thinking with our minds. And I always tell, especially young people, if there's something in your heart, something in your soul that you believe you're supposed to do, but it scares you, go ahead and do it. Because at the end of your life, the things you're going to regret are not going to be those things you did. They're going to be those things you didn't do. And by then, it's going to be too late to go back and do them.
Man. The third of your truth were what you leave behind is what you weave in the hearts of others. How can someone start living with a legacy mindset today, regardless of their current circumstances?
I think it comes down to one word, and that word is service. You have to give of yourself. There's a when I was growing up, and you may be too young for this, but there was a television host by the name of Fred Rogers, Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood.
Heard of him.
I mean, everybody kind of
Yeah, yeah.
knows.
Yeah, I watch the shows.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, all right. I gotta be careful because sometimes it's like, what are you talking about? I never, it's like, okay,
Yeah.
I'm old, so I
Nah.
remember Fred Rogers. Fred Rogers died in 2003, and his family was going through his effects, and they found his wallet. And inside his wallet was a scrap piece of paper on which Mr. Rogers had written four simple words: Life is for service. Clyde, I'm sure there's people you know, and there's people I know that kind of feel like they're born empty. And that when they get out of school and get into life, whatever that looks like for them, that then their job is to fill up their empty self. I've got to get make the most money. I've got to drive the nicest car. I got to live in the nicest house. I've got to have all the latest gadgets and gizmos. And what I found is we're not born empty. We're
Correct.
all born full with
Correct.
whatever we need to be successful in life already inside of us. We just need to find it, pull it out, and use it for our benefit. So our
Correct.
job or our goal in life should not be to fill ourselves up.
Correct.
Goal in life should be to empty ourselves out with our unique gifts and talents, certainly for the betterment of ourselves, but also for the betterment of our families, our friends,
Correct.
and our communities.
How would I think? What are like some of the people that woven you and meaningful into your heart during your journey of having this terminal cancer?
Yeah, I mean there are so many. I mean there are people that when I got cancer, I was 100% sure that they would be there for me, that they would they would be in the foxhole and wouldn't run. That were like, ooh, Terry, you're 51 years old. You've got terminal cancer. I can't deal with this. I have to kind of distance myself from you. And then there are people who I never expected to be there for me that have never left my side in the 13 years. And Clyde, let me say this, and if nobody remembers anything else I say today, remember this. I think this is incredibly important. It's more important who you work with and who you work for than it is the work that you do. Find people that care about you, find people that want to invest in you, find people that want to see you succeed in life. Hitch your wagon to those people and climb your mountains together.
Man, I believe one more, right? Yeah, one
Yeah.
more truth, which
Yeah, the last one, as
is it
long as you don't quit,
correct, you can never be
you can never
defeated.
be defeated. And I think that's fairly self-explanatory, but the way that kind of resonates with me is this. Someday my cancer, my pain is going to end. It may end through surgery, it may end through some new medication being developed. Quite frankly, it may end when I die. But if I quit, if I give up, if I give in to pain, then pain will always be a part of my life. So I try not to give into it. I use it to make me stronger. I think of pain as, instead of running from it, flipping it inside of you, burning it as fuel, using it as energy to make you stronger and more resilient.
Have there been like moments that you felt like you was close to quitting, and how and what kept you pushing through?
Yeah, that's a great question. Yes, many of those times. I mean, when I was first diagnosed, they told me that I would probably be dead in 2 years, that they had nothing to offer me other than surgery. If the cancer was somewhere they could cut it out, they would cut it out. Otherwise, we don't really have anything to offer you. So they put me on this drug called interferon. And as my doctor used to say, it's not a cure. We're just trying to kick the can down the road and buy you more time to hopefully have other things come about. And the problem was I took a weekly interferon injection and I had terrible flu-like symptoms. Imagine the worst case of flu you've ever had in your life. I had that for 2 or 3 days every week after each injection. And I took those weekly injections for almost 5 years. So imagine having a horrible case of the flu every week for 5 years. And Clyde, there were times I begged God to take me I mean, I was so sick of being sick that I just begged God. It's like, please take me out of this. Let me die, let my family get on with their lives, but just take me out of this. But he didn't. And I think what God did is gave me the strength to continue to go forward, to continue to move forward. So I absolutely wanted that. I mean, I kind of felt there were two camps in that time. There were the people who were living, and then there were the people who weren't dying. And I was absolutely in the I'm not dying category. I'm not living. I mean, I sometimes a good day was literally getting out of bed and getting to the couch, and sitting on the couch for the day. That was a win. That was a big win for me. That's how bad I felt. And so it was, can you help me here, God? Because I can't do this alone. I can't go through this disease alone. And what I've always said has gotten me through cancer are my three F's, which are faith, family, and friends. Those absolutely are the reason that I'm still here.
Faith, family, and friends is a great source of information that the listeners could use to help them go through whatever that they going through. Um, what advice what advice would you give someone listening today who feels like they have nothing left to give?
Um, I guess let me tell you two stories that I think will answer that question. First one, true story, happened back in the 1950s at Johns Hopkins University, and there was a professor there who was doing an experiment with rats. And as soon as I say that, like, oh God, he's going to tell a rat story. Yeah, I'm going to tell a rat story. So like, hang with me here. So he wanted to see how long the average rat could tread water. So he put rats in a tank of water that was over their head. And the first group of rats, basically, they all sank and drowned within 15 minutes. And I know that's kind of cruel, and by today's standards, we wouldn't probably allow that. But this was back in the 1950s, remember? And so then he took a second group of rats and he put them in the exact same tank of water that was over their head. But he watched them this time. And just as they were getting ready to sink and drown, he reached in, grabbed them, pulled them out, dried them off, and let them rest for a while. And then he put the exact same rats in that exact same tank of water. And on average, the second time around, those rats treaded water for 60 hours.
Oh wow.
Now think about that. First time, 15 minutes. It's not
Mhm.
like, you're going to flunk a test or you're going to lose your job or your marriage is going to fail. You're going to die. Your life is going to be over. And the second time around, 60 hours, which taught me two things. Number one, the importance of hope in our lives. That if we know we're doing the right thing, maybe not today, maybe not this month, maybe not even this year, but if we know we're doing the right thing, there's a good chance we'll get to where we want to be somewhere down the road. Nothing's 100%, but there's a good chance. And the second thing it taught me was just how much more our physical bodies can handle than we ever thought they could. Now, don't get me wrong. I think we all have a point where it's our breaking point. We can't go on. But that breaking point is so much further down the road. And the reason we quit, we stop, we give up, is because our brains, going back to, control your mind or your mind
Oh,
will
your
control
mind.
you, because our brains are telling us, hey, this hurts, it's uncomfortable, stop it. And we do, but we don't have to. We can push through that pain. So that's one story. And then the other story happened to me a couple years ago. There was a young nurse who was learning how to do things, already a nurse, but about 25 years old, how to do things on the unit where I was being treated. And about 6 months later, she was taking care of me by herself. And she came in and she was like, Terry, I've got a story I want to tell you, but I don't know how to tell it to you. And Clyde, I didn't know how to respond to that. I mean, what do you say to somebody that says something like that to you? So I said, well, I hope you decide you want to tell me. I said, I think I would enjoy hearing the story. So the next couple hours, she's in and out. And finally, she comes in, sits down. She's like, all right, here's the story. She said, when I first met you, I was going to get out of nursing. I'd had a very good friend of mine die. I was in a really dark place. I talked to my family. I was going to quit nursing and I was going to go to work for Amazon. And she said, then I met you. And I saw what you go through every time you come for your treatments, how you have these terrible reactions. And then I went back in your file while I was caring for you, and I read everything you'd been through. You had your foot amputated, your leg amputated, you had all these things happen. And she said, when I finished reading your story, I knew I was where I was supposed to be. Now, Clyde, if she would have never told me that story, I would have had
Right.
no idea that my life had had a positive impact on anybody. I can promise your audience, if you're listening to us, there's somebody out there that is watching how you handle your adversity in life and would give almost everything they have just to walk 5 minutes in your shoes. So don't think your story doesn't matter. Don't think your life doesn't matter. There are people watching you. Many of those people you probably don't even know.
Amen. I'm in firm agreement with you on that. Um, One final question before we do like a rapid fire. Um, what are you grateful for today?
Oh, so much. I mean everything. I was supposed to be dead I was diagnosed in 2012. I was supposed to be dead in 2014. I've got to see my daughter graduate from high school. I've gotten to see my daughter graduate from college, walk across the stage at the Air Force Academy and shake hands with the President of the United States. I've got to walk my daughter down the aisle when she got married. I mean, the faith I have in God just grows every day because He allows me another opportunity to do His will. And that's kind of how I view
Amen.
this. It's like, God, use my infirmity, use my cancer to show people your love, your mercy, your grace, your peace, your healing. So that my family and my friends, I'm incredibly grateful for. And just every life I touch is something that's important to me. I've been asked, how do you want to be remembered? Clyde, I don't want to be remembered. I could care less about being remembered. 100 years from now, nobody's going to remember I was even here. But what I'd like today is to have those deep connections with people. There's a psychology professor at the University of Chicago who does this experiment with his students. The idea is you go out and get on a bus, and in 3 questions, you go deep with somebody. So you get on a bus, sit down next to somebody. First question, hey, how you doing? Oh, I'm fine. How are you? Second question, and I'm just making this up. What do you do for a living? Oh, I'm a doctor. Okay. Third question, have you always wanted to be a doctor? It doesn't matter what they say. They could say, no, I grew up on a farm and I wanted to be a veterinarian, but X, Y, and Z happened. Or my mother was a doctor but died of breast cancer when she was 40, so I'm honoring her memory by being a doctor. Whatever they tell you, now they're telling you their purpose, their why, their mission in life. And we don't do that with people. Social media allows us to stay on the surface. I want to go deep with people. I want to
Mm.
understand what makes them tick, which is why I ask a lot of questions.
I appreciate it. I appreciate having you on the podcast. Uh, Terry, your four truth. One, to control your mind, or it will control two. It will control you. Number two, embrace the pain and the difficulty to build resilience. Number three, what you leave behind is what you weave in the hearts of others. And number four, as long as you don't quit, you can never be defeated. Terry, I do appreciate you joining the podcast. Would you like to do the rapid fire questions before
I'd
I
love to.
allow you
Yeah.
to promote your book? Um, all right, cool. It's going to be a minute. I'm going to think of questions at the top of my head, and then you just give me your best response.
Okay.
First question is, what's your favorite coffee?
I don't drink coffee.
You don't drink coffee?
I've never drank coffee in my life. No.
So I'm thinking that's a coffee mug, and
No, it's just a water. I just got water in it. So it's no coffee. Sorry.
okay. Uh, Favorite place you traveled?
Favorite place I've traveled. I have never traveled outside the United States. I think I went to college in Charleston, South Carolina. I think it's a beautiful city. I would say Charleston, South Carolina.
Okay. Favorite restaurant to get food at?
Oh, this is a no-brainer. There's a little small pizza shop at 84th and Pulaski Street in Chicago called Vito and Nick's. Vito and Nick's large sausage pizza absolutely would be where I would go.
Are you a Cubs fan?
I am a Cubs fan, even though I grew up on the South Side. I should be a Sox fan. Yes, I am a Cubs fan.
Who's your favorite Chicago Cub player?
Um, oh, who the heck? Uh, Gee,
You got Shanto, you got Sosa, you got Kerry Woods, you got Mark Pryor, you got
I actually have. I don't
Derek
have it up, but
Lee.
I have an autographed picture of Mark Pryor, so I'm going to say Mark Pryor.
Okay, okay.
Thank you. Thanks for helping me
I,
out
I
on
think I think he currently he's like, if I'm not mistaken, I think he's the current pitching coach for the Dodgers.
that. Is he? Okay,
Yeah,
cool.
yeah, yeah,
I
yeah.
didn't know that.
Yeah. Um, Favorite landmark in Chicago, Illinois.
Buckingham Fountain.
Okay. Uh, if you had to meet three people in your life, living or transition, who would you want to meet and why?
Certainly Jesus. I mean, without a doubt, I would love to meet God, the Lord. Secondly, probably Harry Truman, president who took over for Roosevelt when he died during World War II and dropped the atomic bomb. And the third person, if I could meet, probably Audrey Hepburn, who was an actress
Okay.
long, long time ago. So,
I got a couple more.
okay, sure.
Favorite vehicle?
Favorite vehicle would be any vehicle I can fit in. I mean, and you have to laugh at that because I mean, literally, when my wife and I would go buy a car, we would go and try on cars. Like, I can't drive this because the stick shift hits me in the knee or something like that.
Right.
So it's like any car that I could fit in, usually some kind of bigger SUV.
Okay. All right. So, what is your vision for the world for the next 5 years?
I think faith has got to play a much bigger role in life. And my middle brother has been the president or principal of the Catholic high school that we attended many, many years ago. For the last 30 years, he's been doing that. And we were talking about a month ago, and we were talking about faith, and they survey the students, and the students come from all over Chicago, and it was like, how many of you believe in God? How many of you go to church? How many do? And there's a there's a trend of people, more young people believing in God, more people believing in faith and things like that. So I hope that continues on that upward trajectory because I mean, we all think that it's about us. I mean, we're bodies that have a spirit. I kind of look at us just the opposite. We're spirits that are in a body, and we don't belong to ourselves. We belong to the individual, the creator who made us.
Correct. Terry Tucker, it's a privilege and honor for you to do this rapid fire questions. Would you like to promote your book, your social media, how people can reach you, and any
Sure.
causes?
Sure. So the easiest way to get a hold of me is I have a blog/website called Motivational Check. So you can leave me a message at motivationalcheck.com. You can also get access to all my social media links there. My book, which is called Sustainable Excellence, 10 Principles to Leading Your Uncommon and Extraordinary Life. That's available also on the website. You can get it through Amazon, anywhere you can get a book online. And my new book should be out later this year. It's called Four Truths and a Lie. So that's been taking a lot of my time right now. And
Okay.
just go to my website, motivationalcheck.com. It's the easiest way to leave me a message or find out what's going on with me.
Again, Mr. Terry, it's a privilege and honor to have you on my podcast, the CAMedia Podcast. For those who are listening, you can reach the podcast at CAMedia Podcast on every social media, Facebook, Instagram, X. Uh, I was about to say MySpace. MySpace has been long gone. Um, if you'd like to be a guest on the podcast, you can reach me at cmediapodcast@gmail.com. Again, Mr. Terry Tucker, it's a privilege and honor to have you on the podcast. Thank
Clyde,
you
thanks for having me on.
so
I
much.
really enjoyed talking with you.
It's my privilege and honor again. You take care.
Thank you, you too.